Hello, my name's Dr. Alan Kerry. Welcome to another podcast from the South Essex GP Training website. With me I have Dr. Sunil Gupta, and we're going to discuss today the topic of management theories. In this podcast we're going to outline some of the ideas of people like Adam Smith, Frederick Taylor, Peter Drucker, Michael Porter and many others. So Sunil, let's start with Adam Smith.
So Adam Smith was an 18th century economist, and his idea was job specialisation and the division of labour. He observed that firms manufacturing pins can do it in one of two ways: a craft style, where each worker did all the steps, or a production process, with each worker specialised in one step of the process. And he realised that job specialisation resulted in much higher efficiency and productivity, and breaking down the total job allowed for the division of labour in which workers became very skilled at their specific tasks.
Can you say a few words about scientific management and Frederick Taylor?
So scientific management and Frederick Taylor, his idea was to replace rule of thumb work methods with scientifically devised methods. And his ideas were to scientifically select, train, teach and develop each worker instead of leaving them to train themselves. And the point was to provide detailed instructions to the worker and supervision of each worker, and this has led to sort of the concept of piece rate pay.
Thank you. What are Fayol's 14 principles of management?
So Fayol's 14 principles of management are division of labour, authority and responsibility, discipline, unity of command, unity of direction, subordination of individual interest to the common interest, remuneration of personnel, centralisation, line of authority, order, equity, stability of tenure of personnel, initiative and esprit de corps. So going on about it in a bit more detail, division of labour allows for job specialisation. Fayol noted jobs can, however, have too much specialisation, leading to poor quality and worker dissatisfaction. Number two, authority and responsibility. Fayol included both formal and informal authority resulting from special expertise. Number three, discipline. Obedient, applied, respectful employees are necessary for the organisation to function. 4. Unity of command. Employees should have only one boss. 5. Unity of direction. A single plan of action to guide the organisation. 6. Subordination of individual interest to the common interest, i.e. the interest of the organisation takes precedence over that of the individual employee. So Fayol's 7th principle was remuneration of personnel, an equitable, uniform payment system that motivates, contributes to organisational success. Number 8, centralisation, which is a degree to which authority rests at the top of the organisation. Number 9, line of authority, which is a clear chain of command from the top to the bottom of the firm. Number 10, order, which is the arrangement of employees where they will be of most value to the organisation and to provide career opportunities. 11, equity, the provision of justice and the fair and impartial treatment of all employees. Number 12, stability of tenure of personnel, because if you have long-term employment, then that leads to the development of skills for the workers that improves the organisation's performance. Number 13, initiative, which is the fostering of creativity and innovation by encouraging employees to act on their own. And number 4, esprit de corps, which is comradeship, shared enthusiasm, foster devotion to the common cause, which is the organisation, according to Fayol.
Thank you. Let's move on to Weber and his 5 principles of bureaucracy.
So Weber's 5 principles of bureaucracy are: authority is the power to hold people accountable for their actions. Positions in the firm should be held based on performance, not social contacts. Position duties are clearly identified so that people know what is expected of them. Lines of authority should be clearly identified such that workers know who to report to who. And rules, standard operating procedures and norms guide the firm's operations.
Thank you. Now can you outline for us the Pareto Principle, the Hawthorne Studies and management by objectives?
The Pareto Principle applies to many areas of life. It's the 80-20 principle, and examples include 20% of causes invariably produce 80% of results, 80% of operating profits are generated by 20% of customers, about 80% of operating profits are generated by about 20% of employees, and it's not necessarily exactly 80% and exactly 20%, but this 80-20 principle applies, like I said, to many areas of life, and we're not really sure why it does. Hawthorne Studies in the 1930s led to a shift of management theory away from pure mechanistic and economic views of worker motivation and recognition, and a recognition that social relationships can be a greater motivator. The work groups influence individual worker output, and supervisors' attention has a significant influence on productivity. Management by objectives is a term formed by Peter Drucker, who has really been called the father of management. He's come up with a large number of very excellent work on this area. And Peter Drucker and management by objectives is focusing on results, not on activities. And progress towards objectives should be monitored regularly. And objectives should be SMART, i.e. specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-related.
Thank you. Now can you outline the ideas of McGregor, Maslow and Herzberg?
So Douglas McGregor in 1960 came up with Theory X and Theory Y. And Theory X managers are meant to be managers who believe that the average employee dislikes work and will try to avoid it. Theory X managers believe that most employees must be coerced and closely supervised, and most employees have little ambition and are mostly interested in job security, and that employees mostly avoid responsibilities. He contrasts that with Theory Y managers who believe that physical and mental effort in work is as neutral as play or rest, that most people prefer to exercise self-discretion and self-control, that people learn when encouraged to accept and seek responsibilities, and Theory Y managers believe that people are interested in displaying imagination, ingenuity and creativity to solve organisational problems. So that was Douglas McGregor. Maslow's hierarchy of needs range from the lowest physiological needs to the highest self-actualisation needs. So applied to management, the basic physiological needs will be things like basic pay, a canteen. Then you've got the security needs, e.g. job security, pension. Then the next hierarchy of needs is social needs, e.g. teamwork. And then you've got esteem needs, e.g. company car, new job title. And then the highest needs are self-actualisation, e.g. more responsibility. And Herzberg two-factor theory, he said there were hygiene factors and motivating factors. And hygiene factors cause dissatisfaction, and addressing them helps to address dissatisfaction, but it won't motivate. So hygiene factors will make employees less dissatisfied, so if you deal with things like salary or working conditions, but it won't necessarily motivate employees. And he said there's different motivating factors which are intrinsic to the job, e.g. achievement, responsibility, recognition and advancement.
Thank you. So what's the range of management style which can occur, and what's this managerial grid?
So Tannenbaum Schmidt continuum came up highlighting the range of management style, which is a spectrum which on the left hand side you've got boss centered leadership, and on the right hand side you've got the subordinate centered leadership. And as you go from left to right, the use of the authority by the manager decreases and the area of freedom for the subordinates increases. So at the boss-centered leadership end, you've got the manager makes the decisions and announces it. And then as you go from left to right, you have manager sells decisions, manager presents ideas and invites questions, manager presents tentative decision subject to change, manager presents problems, gets suggestions, makes decisions, manager defines limits, asks groups to make the decision, and at the subordinate-centered leadership end, you've got the manager permits the subordinates to function within limits defined by the manager. So that's the Tannenbaum Schmidt continuum, which is to do with management style. Then there's the Mouton managerial grid, which takes into account two factors: the amount of concern the manager has for production and getting the task done, and the amount of concern the manager has for the employees. And those managers who have a high concern for getting the task done but a low concern for people, that's called a 9-1 style, which is a produce or perish style. While those managers who have a very high concern for the people that work for them but don't have a very low concern for getting the task done, that's a 1-9, which is a country club style. Other types of style is an impoverished style, 1-1, which is a low concern for the commitment to the task and low concern for people. A middle of the road style, which is 5-5. And what is ideal is a team style, which is a 9-9, which is a high commitment to getting the task done, but also a high concern for people.
Thank you. And I want to discuss the systems approach, the organisational behaviour approach, and the contingency and situational approaches.
A few words about the systems approach. This emphasises the interrelatedness and the interdependence of the parts of the organisation. If any part of a system is altered, it is likely to have effects for the whole system. For a system to function effectively, resources such as materials, money, people and information must flow freely through the system. And you need to identify the inputs, outputs and objectives that you're trying to achieve. So that was the systems approach. The next is the organisational behaviour approach, and that concerns people as individuals, their behaviour in groups, their individual motivations, their development with the organisation and their receptivity to new ideas. It also takes into account the organisation structures within which people work, and the point being to try to create an environment in which learning and personal development takes place. And a few words about the contingency and situational approaches, which basically says that there's not one leadership style that will work with every person, every situation, every time. So you've got to consider factors like flexibility and capabilities of the manager. You've got to consider there's various leadership situations in terms of what the relationship is between the leader and the subordinates, the degree to which the group trusts and likes the leader, the task structure, the extent to which the task is ill-defined or well-defined, and position power, i.e. the authority of the leader in terms of formal authority, in terms of hiring and firing. So what that's basically saying is that in certain situations the leader has to be more directive. E.g. in an emergency situation you don't want to have a large committee meeting to discuss what to do. You want someone to take charge and tell and give clear instructions. While if it's a complex, difficult problem which has many factors, then you're working with people who've got a great deal to contribute, then you need to have far more discussion and about what the best way forward is.
This concludes part 1 of this presentation. Part 2 is also available here at YouTube, or you can find the link at www.southessexgptraining.co.uk.